Welcome everyone to session 6 of our 6-part series, Train the Trainer. This morning is the magic morning when we finally get to see the learning applied from one of our participants, Victor, who's going to stay with his name as far as I can tell and not be Obi-Wan today or Captain America. As you know, we've been very playful and informal about this, but we're all taking it very seriously that this is the culmination of what we've been doing. So what we'll do today is Victor will do his presentation. The three of us who are on the call together will go through the presentation, talk a little bit about the process that went into it, and then we'll close out with some final remarks and any kind of a benediction that Christine and Victor want to give. So with that in mind, Victor, I'm going to turn it over to you to do your presentation, and best of luck. We're all looking forward to hearing what you have to show us.
Well, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Christine. Hi, good morning. Well, should I start this as Power presented to you as formal?
You can do it any way that's comfortable for you. You want to, in this setting, treat it as you are in a real setting where you're trying to make sure that the learners have their moment of transformation. So as long as you get to us and get across to us what you wanted to get across, that's what we're shooting for here.
Okay, so, all right, so here we go. Hi, good morning. My name is Victor Jimenez, and I would like to welcome you to our first STEM STEAM program presented by the California State Library. This program is being made possible by using LSTA funds that we're looking to apply for a series of programs all related to STEM activities. Now, the goal on mind with this one program that I will be presenting is to have parents and kids get familiar and comfortable learning how to use make devices at home as part of the California State Library Initiative to promote STEM learning activities in public libraries. Now, we have a series of objectives that I would like to be able to accomplish with this program. My first objective will be to have the customer STEM program to be able to research independently websites to gather additional STEM activities to implement at home. My second goal is to have customers that will be present at the program be able to follow through with the video demonstration and the activities to subsequently be able to recreate these activities and complete them on their own, at their own time, in their own time at home. In order for them to learn more about circuitry and its many uses on technological fields. Now, the third goal that I have, the third objective, I should say, that I think is important for us as libraries, is that I would like to have customers to be able to provide us with feedback directly, meaning at the end or during the presentation, or indirectly, meaning by answering a survey, follow-up survey, to provide us information about the outcomes of their experiments, the relevance of the activity for them and for the children, and also the overall learning value of the program as a lifelong learning experience. Now, having said all that, this presentation, I went through this process using the ADDIE model, thinking about like one of my cohort members said in the past, with the goal, end goal in mind. My end goal in mind is to have people get familiar in how to use these devices, to get interested in more technological, in technology careers. Now, well, here we go. Welcome to Makey Makey. This is a program activity that we have here in, we will be presented here at the Stanislaus County Library. Now, our program, in our case, this program is made with, it's been made possible by using LSTA funds from the California State Library. Now we have for this specific program for Makey Makey 2 sessions. The first session will be running on June 15, and the second session will be running on July 29. Now our target is to have 25 participants on each one of these sessions. And I'll be happy to report that on the first session, the day after we send the email blast, we got all our slots fulfilled. So we got no more additional openings. There will be another series of programs that I will talk about more at the end of the presentation, so that will probably pique your interest about what this will be about, but they're also related to STEM. Now, Makey Makey, it's pretty simple. This is how it works. Now, Paul, I'm sorry, should I go off? I should have asked you, But these are hyperlinks, live hyperlinks that will take us to the activities. So should I continue on? Provide a presentation? I just explain what I wanted to do here.
You're in front of an audience. Do whatever it takes to meet the goal you have for this session.
Okay, perfect. All right. Now, with this program in mind, the one thing that we would like to have first is have the parents register for the events, or if anyone under the age of 17 will have to have either a parent or a legal guardian register online through our website, and we will provide them with the opportunity to pick up this device a week before the actual event. That will give them more than plenty of chance to stop by the library, pick up this unit, and start to get familiar with it. Now, they will also be required to provide to have an active library card and sign up for this device with one of our customer contracts. Once we get once we get into the program, one of the things that I will do is I will provide a brief explanation, a brief history about the program, telling a little bit more about what Makey Makey is, where it's coming from, its humble beginnings, and then I will provide an introduction to the program itself, telling them how we will be using these devices. That will be followed by playing a video that will show them a very basic activity that they can perform at home, which is the following.
If you're watching the archived recording, you will have noticed that we had about a minute of silence there that was unanticipated. And as we discovered by pausing the recording and troubleshooting, Victor was trying to show something that we actually weren't seeing. So we've gone through the text side of that. And for purposes of the presentation, we're going to pick up right where he left off, and then we'll circle back for the critique. So Victor, back to you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Christine. Well, okay, what we left out was on me trying to show you a video of what the activity will be. This is basically just a very simple activity that all participants will be able to follow through once we finish watching it. As you can see on this presentation, the second hyperlink on the center is also another activity, but it's actually the link to the actual activity that the participants will be able to follow through by using the Makey Makey at home. They will have all the necessary items, which is basically just the unit provided by us, the library. And also, I will tell them beforehand that they need to go ahead and gather some additional items from home, whether it's the bananas that they will be able to see playing out on the screen, or any other item that will conduct the electricity. Once that's all taken care of, I will allow them a few minutes to complete that activity on their own. We will circle back and we'll do a small session, small roundtable session that will provide all us as a group with an opportunity to exchange ideas, to exchange the things that went well, that didn't went well, other ideas they might have on their mind about how they can use Makey Makey. Now, the second part of this program will be another activity, a bit more challenging activity that they will also be able to watch a video from with us here on the screen, as well as another link where I will redirect them so they can complete that activity. Now, the only difference with the second activity is that we will not have a lot of time for a roundtable, but at the end, we will just jump onto the later part of this program, which will be this page. And on this page, we will talk about the different STEM activities that we have, and I hope you guys have the same time. We'll be running similar programs during the summer at your own libraries, at your own branches, that you can get all excited about and bring your customers onto this. If it's not physically, obviously, we might not be able to do this physically, but you can be able to provide our customers with this access to technology. I would encourage you to look at Makey, not only Makey, but other programs that we'll be conducting as well. We will be having an Autobots program, coding club using Edison robots, which will be pretty interesting because we'll be combining two different activities. So if you have an opportunity to do something like that, that'd be great. Now, the last activity, and also great activity that this will be the first time we'll be implementing is AR, augmented reality with 3D Bear. It's kind of like Pokemon Go, where you went out and look at different, you went online, you went outside on the streets with your phone. So it's kind of, it goes kind of the same way. It's very interesting. We've watched the videos and we're eager to provide these customers. And I hope that you guys also have that opportunity. Now, having said all that, I hope you like the presentation. I hope that this motivates you to get interested in providing this type of services to your communities and enjoy the benefits of having a more educated and technologically savvy communities. Thank you. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, Victor. Really nicely done in spite of all the tech problems that we had. Let's first tackle the things that were really good about the presentation, then we can circle back to the tech problems and how we as trainers, when we face those things, first identify that there's a problem, and then two, we quickly resolve them to the best of our ability. What, from my point of view, was lovely about that was that you were personable all the way through. You were making eye contact with the camera by looking at that little light rather than at the screen for much of it. And you felt completely natural and comfortable with the topic there. This is an essential part of any presentation we do where we're training, where we are instilling confidence in our audience and in our participants, our co-conspirators in the process, by ourselves exuding a sense of confidence, even if deep inside we don't feel that and we're nervous as heck and we're thinking, oh, what's going wrong here? What do I do next? You did a really masterful job of maintaining control over that as much as you could. Also, small things well worth noting, you have a very simple background there, so there's nothing detracting from attention given to you or to those slides as you talk about things. Oftentimes we have so much going on in the background that people start focusing on that, especially if there's something unanticipated that the audience is seeing that we're not aware of. We all know there's horrible stories of people using their backgrounds that work against them because there's something back there that's so awful that it makes the image go viral. And the tragedy there is that the presentation or the content is lost because we're focusing on what was wrong with the presentation. By going with a simple background like you did, you eliminated that possibility and you kept things kind of neutral. Also, your deck was really nice in that it was clear, easy to read. The color scheme was very nice. Nothing cluttered about that. And that's an important part. As we've talked so much in this series, or said so much in this series, we don't want the deck to be the center of attention. We want it to be an active part of the presentation we're doing, the training that we're offering, the learning opportunity that we're trying to foster here, so that that's the center of it and the learners remain the focus. And finally, the way you started off telling us what the goal of the session was and circling back with a call to action saying, I hope that you're interested in this particular process and that you'll look up Makey and other things in your own library setting, gives us the impetus and the invitation to go further with it, even if we can't be at the live sessions that you're talking about. So for all those things, kudos, commendations. I think those are very well done. Before we move into the tech problems, how are you feeling about the presentation right now?
Now that after it's done, all said and done, I feel great.
That's what we all hope for.
Yeah,
and
no, definitely those little technical programs. Yeah, I mean, things that I thought that I had under control, those are the things that I actually I played into myself at home, and I thought, oh, great, yeah, it's click on the link is working, it's providing, but I didn't know that my target audience wasn't watching anything. Guys were not able to see anything at all.
So let's stop there, because a lot of what you're referring to is the conversation we had when the recording was paused. For those of you watching the recording saying, what just happened? And what was that minute or so of silence? There was that point where Victor was describing what the program provides, and he was talking about the links he had on the screen. What we were seeing was Victor just looking at the screen for well over a minute. It felt like it was about 5 or 10 minutes. We're wondering, is he frozen? No, he's still moving. Well, is he trying to find stuff? And Christine and I did not want to break into a presentation if he was trying to troubleshoot, because we wanted to see how he would do things. Once we paused the recording, we discovered that while we were watching Victor and waiting for the next thing to happen, Victor thought that what he clicked on was actually running a video. So he was watching the video with the assumption that we were watching the video too. And it was only when we paused the recording and said, Victor, where's the tech problem? And he's saying, what tech problem? Did we realize that we were all on slightly different pages? So a great learning opportunity. Victor, knowing now that you had about a minute of silence there while you were looking at a screen thinking that others were watching the video, what would you do differently for your next presentation to avoid that problem?
I don't know if I will have the opportunity to run a second screen.
But what's a tip that we all inherently need to be aware of when we think something's being seen, but we're not sure?
I think that I should have started by saying, please go ahead and please tell me whether or not you're able to see the screen, like, but reframe it in a different way, in a more inviting. Not like I just said it, but like, okay, folks, we're going to start this presentation. Please, are you guys able to see what I'm seeing?
Absolutely.
I'm going to start to run this screen and just point it out to me, please, if you can't see it. So to avoid that long pause, I was just waiting standing still because I was watching at the video. I didn't know that you guys were watching at me. I thought you were watching the video.
You were actually quite photogenic, so that was not a problem. It was just, we were hoping that it hadn't turned into a silent movie. So there is one of the tremendous learning moments. And again, it harkens back to a story that was told earlier in this whole series. When you are moving from one thing to another, when you're moving from a slide to a video, or when you're moving from a slideshow back to all the faces on the screen in gallery format in Zoom, one of the first things you want to do is just check to make sure that what you think is on their screen is what others are saying. I will again take us under the hood and say every session that we've done, Christine and I are on about a half hour ahead of time. If I'm doing anything differently than what I've done in previous sessions, I always ask her, what are you seeing, to compare the reality check against that with what she's doing. So all of us need to always be conscious of the fact that just because we're seeing it doesn't mean everybody else is. Also, when we were doing the tech check with the recording off, Victor was trying to troubleshoot it. Finally did get the video up so we could see it. It was a lovely video, by the way. There was the image that he kind of referred to with a bunch of bananas on the screen all hooked up to something mechanical, and it would have been lovely to have seen it. Well, Victor ran the video again for Christine and me as a test, and we were not able to hear the sound. So what we did before we started the recording was said, all right, Victor, this is not going to work today. We can't troubleshoot it enough to get the solution within the time we have to work it. But A, be aware of that. B, if you're going to do this again, run a check where you're doing a live test of this with other people in your audience, and that will help you to get past those problems. We all make those mistakes. Let me repeat that. We all make those mistakes. Every one of us, both the three of us here on this call and everybody else watching this in an archived version, it happens. And so you don't beat yourself up and say, oh, I'm the only person that ever made that mistake. I can never show my face again in public. Well, the point is, once you identify the problem, work your way through it, and then add that to your toolkit of things that you do. You know, we're strongly recommending, and Victor is accepting the idea that having done a test with somebody else, rather than just running it in his own home, where he couldn't have seen that there was a problem with it, was something that got in the way of his having the fantastic presentation he would have wanted to have today. Now, is that a deal killer? Absolutely not. It's part of the learning process. Cannot say enough. Fail to learn. Build on those failures so that you learn from them and then move on. Victor will probably do this presentation many, many more times and run this with many different people in different settings and test it out. And as a result of that, each audience that sees that presentation will see a better version of it until it's finally exactly where he wants it and where it has the impact that it has. Victor, any responses to that? Any additional thoughts?
No, like this would definitely help me just fine tune it to have it where they wanted to be. Yeah, like I said, I wasn't even aware that you guys were not able to watch the video.
And that is where we want our learners, for those of you watching the archive version. We don't want our learners going home afterwards or turning off the camera and then saying, oh, that was so awful, I can never show my face in public again. We want our learners to be exactly where Victor is right now, saying, okay, problem, I think we've resolved it. I learned something, it will get better. The whole point of training, the whole point of training trainers is to help ourselves get better at what we do and walking away, celebrating whatever good came out of it, learning from the things that happened that were not anticipated, and making us better so that ultimately we serve our learners better. Christine, do you want to add anything from your point of view as to what we've been talking about?
No, I think you touched on everything. So,
okay. See if there was anything else that we want to do in terms of critiquing this. We have the sheet that we were talking about last time. For those of you that haven't seen the previous article, there's a group called Second Nature that's done a fabulous article evaluating business presentations. It's a 6-point presenter skills assessment checklist, and a link to that was in the PowerPoint deck to session 5. There were 6 things they looked for, and it would be good for us to just quickly go through those and see how this particular presentation matched them. So the first of the 6 points to watch for as you're critiquing something like this is ability to analyze an audience effectively and tailor the message accordingly. Victor, in terms of having expected more of your colleagues in today and ending up with just Christine and me, do you feel that your analysis of your audience matched what you were presenting and that it was a good match in terms of content and call to action?
The way I created this PowerPoint was just to present it in general to any member of the audience, thinking about my colleagues, not just, but I'm also including you, because at the end, my assumption was that I will be presenting, do this presentation as if I were doing it for the other stakeholders that will be running this show with me.
Right. And for those of you that are specifically watching the archived version as part of your efforts to learn how to train your colleagues better, remember that what Victor's talked about is one side of the equation. You're doing a test run of a presentation for an entirely different audience. So when you're in this kind of a setting, if you're doing the presentation to fellow trainers, to colleagues in training, teaching, and learning, make sure that you've done something that ties that audience into the content too. You could up front with 1 or 2 lines set the stage by saying, this is geared toward an audience of people in the service area that I work with, but because you're my audience today, I also want you to think about how this could apply to you. And I hope that by the end of this, that whatever you're seeing me do with that audience, that it will inspire an action to you. And then you circle back, as Victor actually did at the end, say, here's what this means to you as well as to the primary audience that this is for. Does that help, Victor?
Yeah.
And for those of you watching, that same question, I can't hear your answer, but ask yourself, does that help you to see how you can streamline a presentation or broaden it out actually in terms of reaching multiple audiences without losing track of where the ultimate audience is? So moving on to the second thing, ability to develop a clear, well-structured presentation and pitch is compelling and persuasive. For me, it was compelling because Victor had that final wraparound saying, it's for that audience, but I hope that you, Christine, and you, Paul, also got something out of it and that it inspired some curiosity. It did for me. I want to go back now and look at those 2 videos that you talked about and learn a little bit more about makey. I know the term, I've seen it in shops, but I don't have any depth of knowledge in the subject, and what you've done here has inspired me to go take a little bit of look at it when I can carve out some time. So an ability to develop a clear, well-structured pitch, that worked for me as an audience member. The ability to connect with and maintain the engagement of the audience. Christine, how did you feel during the presentation when we got past the tech glitch?
that his engagement was really good.
And I would agree there. Victor, at any point, did you feel like you were losing touch with the 2 of us as an audience or with that larger audience of people watching the archive recording?
I felt it for the beginning, just when we started back the presentation. And it had to do with the fact that on the back of my mind, I was still thinking about what went wrong. But I tried to steer myself away from it and concentrate on going forward. Because I knew that my challenge now was to try to reel you back in, looking past that glitch, that presentation, at the beginning of the or at the beginning of the video. So
It'd be interesting for those of you watching the archive version to ask yourself at this point, did he reel me in quickly enough once we got the recording going, or were there things he could have done differently? Not because you're going to send an email to Victor, but because you're going to put yourself in Victor's position and say, if that had been me, what would I have done that Victor did? And what would I have done differently? This is the learning opportunity. This is why this whole co-conspirator in learning process is such an effective thing. We don't have to experience the glitch to learn from it. So the ability to connect with, I think you did a great job of coming back in. And again, it harkens back to the very thing I had not built into the series, but that happened to me, I think, in the first 10 minutes of session 1, where I got started, we were having some conversation, I was moving slides along and realized that's the wrong version of the slide deck. And what you did a little bit, Victor, and what I did very overtly in that session was to say, here's a problem, here's how you deal with it. Don't deny it, build it in, it establishes rapport with your audience, and you bring them back in. By the time we got to the end of it, the last thing on my mind was that we had had a pause in there. What was really on my mind was how nicely you recovered and how you ended on a really positive note. So again, kudos to you there. Fourth is ability to prepare effective slides that support and strengthen the clarity of the message. I think we've already dealt with the fact that it's a nicely done deck. Victor, as you looked at it in this context, how did you feel about it? Good? Was there anything you want to improve, or is it good to go as you saw it?
You know, the one thing that I had in mind, on the back of my mind, as I started creating these slides was going back to the previous experiences that we have had on these training sessions with you, where less is more on the power on the presentation. And I think I told you that at the beginning. My goal was just to show less content and have more substance talking, to have my audience concentrate on me providing the message. But yeah, granted, providing them with a little bit of small visual aid. Use this as a visual aid, but just as that, not try to rely on the content of the slides just to drive the presentation.
Christine, did it work for you at that level?
Yeah.
Good. Let's think back to that video that I recommended people watch between session 4 and session 5, Peter Bromberg's presentation on presentation skills and how to do a lively presentation. The very point you made, Victor, about not having too much up there is what Peter dealt with in a very humorous and effective way, where he shows a slide that's just covered with text. It almost looks like the Rosetta Stone. And he says to his audience, this, ladies and gentlemen, is the original PowerPoint slide. There's a lot on it. There's so much on it, but there's so much to say. You know, having the sense of humor about it and building off that is a great learning experience. And I think you clearly learned, if you had watched Pete's video, you clearly learned from that slide that that's not where you want to go. And what you did in this was the exact opposite, in providing something that helped us all to stay on topic with you, gave us something interesting to look at, but it was not distracting. It was well integrated into what you did. The fifth, ability to appear confident, natural, and in control. How did you feel in terms of confidence, being natural and in control throughout the presentation?
I think at this first, this being the first time that I'm presenting to college in this kind of format, it's challenging at the beginning, but you kind of reel yourself back in. I'm like, okay, you're in it, you're committed, you need to present it well. So you have to pass the initial stage fear, and just be confident on the content that you're presenting. I don't think it was perfect. I don't think there's ever like a perfect presentation, but you can, because there's always room to improve and make it better than it was the last time around. So I know that I can build on what I just did today to continue fine-tuning it to where I wanted to be, definitely. But it was a great experience. I now that I'm looking back at it after having it done, I think it's a great exercise.
Wonderful. In terms of confidence and control, being natural, I felt like there was never a moment when you totally lost it. Even when you found out that we were having a tech problem when we stopped the recording, you were right in there trying to troubleshoot it, and that was a great thing to see. Christine, any other observations from your side about that?
No, I think it's just part of Victor's personality that I've seen in other sessions, that he's always calm, has control, and it's good. Yep, it's great persona.
Yeah, I can bite my nails in front of everyone, so I'm just twitching my fingers.
That is the most valuable thing you could have said, because for anybody watching this and going, well, I'm not Victor, I'm not feeling that calm. Part of it is projecting that you feel that way, even if you don't. And Victor mentioned in passing the whole concept of stage fright. Colleagues tell me a variety of different things in terms of how stage fright either cripples them or helps them. A lot of great presenters I know say that they always suffer from stage fright before they go out, and they use it to their advantage. They just rechannel that adrenaline into a way that makes them more energetic on stage and helps them get over it. There are other people I know that say that they almost never experience stage fright, and they don't need that as an impetus there. So it's not a right or wrong thing, and it's not something where you say, well, I wish I never felt that, or geez, I haven't, and I'm not sure what to do with it. If you're facing it, use it to your advantage and do what Victor did. You didn't see this, but before we started the recording, he just took a few deep breaths. And when he was ready, we started the recording and he was right in there. We all have to determine what those equivalents are to our taking the deep breath before we go out. If it's that physical action, or if it's shaking hands with somebody, although we're not shaking a lot of hands these days with COVID, but whatever it is that gets us to have that confidence that we're with the audience, we're part of the audience, they are engaged with us and we are engaged with them. That helps us get past stage fright, or at least use it to our advantage. And finally, the ability to summarize and close a presentation to achieve the required desired outcome. I'll comment on the fact that Victor wrapped that back around to a call to action to the two of us that are physically on this. Secondarily, to those of you watching the archive version, and most importantly, to those people he will be seeing out there in the field when he brings this presentation out and draws people into the joys of what he's proposing here. Last thoughts from you, Victor, about that final theme, about the wrap up?
No, I mean, like, again, it's just a matter of now that I've done it, now that I know how to make this one particular part of it more appeal more to my colleagues. So I know that I need to work a little bit more on it. But like I said, it's always room for improvement, and try to find another way to get more energizing, maybe not be more physically active, because you can't really have a lot of movement on the screen because it will throw people off. But say the right word, project those words in the right way. I'm sorry.
So as we wrap up, and clearly this will be a shorter session because we didn't have the number of people that we'd hoped to have doing presentations. Scheduling really got in the way for a lot of people. And I'm sorry for those of you that didn't have the opportunity, that there was not that payoff of now let's take all that we've been playing with and put it out there. But my counsel to all of you, my challenge to you is, if you've actually sat through all these recordings, think back to those moments that were most appealing to you, most revelation inspired to you, and brought you most say, I didn't think about that, I can use that to the benefit of my learners. And at this point in your own mind, try to identify the 2 or 3 takeaways that you can apply with that same question I always ask: what will you do differently in the next week or two as a result of having been part of this? So Victor, you being the entire audience here, what will you as the entire cohort do differently in the next week or two as a result of having been an active participant in the Trainer series?
So there's a lot that I'm still digesting from all the sessions, not only from yours, but also from the other presenters as well. What I've done is after all Christian's emails, I created my own files and do that each file for each one of the presenters. And I go back and watch those recordings when I have some time. That helps me to prepare better for whatever I'm trying to accomplish. And I know I'm going to keep those for a while. I hope that those links will remain active for a while, because I'm still going to be watching those. You never stop learning. And
thank you. That is a perfect line. You never stop learning. I should change the slide back here. Train the trainers. You never stop learning. Thank you.
Yeah, you never do. And things I would probably said during the live presentation that I wasn't able to grasp the concept of, that I was just probably distracted for whatever other reason. Then there's always something new that you discover. Even when you're watching a movie, they're like, oh, I didn't saw that scene before. So things like that. So I know this will definitely help me to get to be better at what I do, and I'm very excited to bring the knowledge that I've been able to gather from all my different sessions to my customers. That's my main goal.
I envy your learners. They are in for a real treat with the attitude you bring and the commitment you bring to learning. I envy your learners. Christine, you've had a chance to watch an awful lot of this and absorb it in there. Anything that you think is worth calling out from what we've done together in the series?
Not particularly one thing, but I think this is definitely a skill to know, understanding of training, taking all your information that you've learned, whether it's in the professional setting, personal setting, and how to share that knowledge to better either people within your inner circle and outer circle. So this is great.
Finally, because I too am a co-conspirator in the whole series, I've got to admit that some of the things that we did impromptu were really nice, and they'll become part of my own toolkit. You know, I'm a big fan of improv. So when we got to that moment in session 5, we started talking about, we've been sitting in our seats for a while and it's time to get up. I didn't just want to repeat what I'd seen a colleague do and have everybody just stand up and stretch, because although that would have gotten us up, it was accomplishing only one thing, which is accomplishing the stretching and the reinvigoration of the minds by doing something different than coming back to it. It struck me in that moment that it would be great to have us get up for a reason and then be able to build it back into a session that was all about presentation. And that's why in the spur of the moment, I suggested to people, knowing we all had books near us, grab a few books, glance at something that you really like out of one of those 3 books, and then do an impromptu minute or 2 presentation. So instead of just being an icebreaker that had nothing else that resulted, it was an icebreaker. It was a different thing for us. It did break the pattern of, we've been sitting here too long, so let's get our minds going again. But most importantly, it took us back to the whole heart of the series, which is, let's do a presentation to see what we can do from that. And it was playful. So things like that, where when we are in the trainer or learning facilitator position, where we can in the spur of the moment find something and try it, whether it works or not, try it to see where it takes us. We put ourselves in a position of doing what Victor said. It's ongoing learning. We never stop. And I hope that that's one of the big takeaways that you have from having participated. Hope you stay in touch with each other out there as time goes by, and that you continue learning from each other. And certainly you have my contact information. I'm pretty easy to find on the net. It's as simple as paul@paulsignorelli.com. If you have questions or comments and you want to continue the conversation, please join us. So with that, we'll formally conclude the session. But I didn't do the obvious thing. Any last minute questions or observations from the 2 of you before we wrap this up?
No, I will keep that term, co-conspirators.
Yeah, and the people that came up with it, like Alec Koros and the other co-conspirators in ETMOOC, we're proud of them. We're grateful to them because they've given us a whole different philosophy to follow in our learning. So with that, I'm going to give us about 5 seconds of pause here for editing purposes and then say, thank you so much. Happy learning.